Welcome to yet another edition of Midas Letter RAW. And guess who's back? Our friend, Special Head Molesky, joins us all the way from the east coast of Canada.
Yeah, guess who's back?
Guess
back
who's
again.
back?
Back again.
The cat came back.
Yeah. Well,
so how was it, Ed?
it's Canada's a very big country. There's lots to see, and I'd say that the East Coast is unique in that not very populated, and people are very friendly.
Did you eat many insects of the sea?
Yeah, lobsters plentiful.
Yeah. Is lobster an insect, or is that actually a...
No, it's seafood.
Really? Well, but if an insect lived in the ocean, it would be seafood, no?
It could be, yeah.
Anything from the sea is...
I mean, we're all related ultimately, right?
Well,
it's just a matter of how far you go back.
That could be fake news, though. I mean,
Well,
these days media has serious credibility issues, as per, well, let's see.
I think, Jordan Peterson's got a book out a couple years ago.
Oh my God, I can't believe you're mentioning that loser on our show.
I know, but he devotes a chapter to about the life of a lobster.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's some...
And tries to draw some profound similarities.
Like be like the lobster or something like that. But
no, Jordan Peterson has done an excellent job of convincing a whole segment of society that he actually has a clue what he's talking about. And honestly, if you read closely what he's saying, he is...
he's very good on his feet. Like, he.
If you ask me, he makes absolutely no sense. He draws correlations and comparisons that it's like, geez, that would be great if we were in Romper Room. But anyways, I don't want to disparage the man overly greatly. He has his own crossfire.
I will say this. I'm not trying to disparage Jordan Peterson, but I didn't finish the book.
Enough said.
And yet, when I read a book on Homo sapiens, Space Sapiens by...
Sapiens, yes.
That book, I couldn't put it down.
I could not put that book down. I think I read it in like a week or something.
Yeah.
Anyway. Today we have some great guests, as per usual, and there's no doubt of who it's going to be, as Matt Harrick is going to join us. He's the Chief Revenue Officer from Voxtur Analytics Corp. And then, of course, Payton Nyquvest is going to join us from Numinus Wellness, Inc., which is another psychedelic story that, nonetheless, is really impressive. They've raised a shit ton of money, and the range of we'll call them substances that they're experimenting with include everything like ketamine, psilocybin, ecstasy. Like, these guys I'm their biggest fan right now.
A lot of money is going into the use of chemicals, psychedelics, mushrooms, all to do with trying to deal with the issue of mental health. That's prolific and growing rapidly.
As I like to point out in every single psychedelic interview, I've been a lifelong consumer of psychedelics since I was a young fellow, and my mental health is good.
They probably know that.
Yeah. Well, I never leave a chance on...
You have a very positive personality.
Sunny disposition.
Sunny. One so true. Yeah, well, so that area is going to become an area of focus.
Yeah, and or an absence of focus, and that's the whole point. Just take the focus.
People have to forget about who they think they are, and realize we're all the same. Really, we're all the same.
We're basically all connected.
Yeah. Well, hey.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and there's since you've been gone, the markets have gone to shit, and they're just not going to be the same until you get back to work here. So,
some are doldrums, and you say when there's been a good year.
Yeah.
Markets usually sell in May and go away after a good year, and if it's not such a good year, then maybe there's still action. But it's quieted down. It's tight, tough market.
Yeah. No, it is very quiet, like copper. Like I'd like to talk about copper because copper and lumber is a story we've been following all year long, pretty much.
Yes.
And, oh, shoot, this machine doesn't know my, oh, God.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, copper, you know, copper, if you think about the world that maybe the way we're going with green and getting away from carbon, copper could become a critical metal in the world, and whoever dominates the copper dominates the world to some degree because it's used in everything. You can't go in that direction without copper. We've said it once, we've said it 100 times, and it's holding well at 430, you know, 434 as we speak.
So here we have it.
Okay.
Edward, there's a chart. There's copper.
Yeah.
Since touching our recent high in February of, oh, sorry.
I don't know.
No, this is U.S. copper. Okay, well, here's an interesting segue.
Okay.
So U.S. copper, we're both shareholders in that.
Yeah.
So another full disclosure there. U.S. copper, after touching a high of 35 cents back in February, has sold off to now its range of 14 to 18. That's a spread that you could technically drive a garbage truck through, but that indicates that there's really no market for these shares. And the reason for that is because the sellers have decided they were not going to sell, and the buyers have bought all they want.
Yeah, we're at a little bit of a, but you know, I think we need, for this particular chart, I like to see it keep moving sideways, build a base here, and then copper ultimately goes higher, and at the end we start to go back and break that sort of downline trend. And it's not unlike the chart of the commodity. It's similar, but it's a little more, the price of copper has really performed much better.
Well, there's the price of copper.
Yeah.
So, but interesting to me is...
See, there's a trend line there.
Yeah. Here.
Yeah. From the peak to that, those, if you look at those highs.
Yes.
And now it's starting to move out of that.
Right. So we've got a situation where we've got higher lows and higher highs coming.
The lows, if you look all the way back.
Let's go 5 years out. Look at that.
Yeah.
Now that is a bull pattern. This is a little consolidation after so much uplift.
And that's a major, But we're back to, you know, levels that copper's only been 4 plus.
Yeah.
Probably a dozen times in the last 20
Let's see
years.
how far back this screen goes, actually. Let's click all. Goes back to 1989. Copper was $1.46 a pound. Got down to, well, let's see.
60 cents.
65 cents, 60 cents a pound in August 2001. So that was pretty much the modern era low.
Yeah, that's when gold bottomed at 2001 after bottoming in 1999, and then gold took off from 2000 to 2011.
Yeah.
And so copper took off with it.
So then what would you say to somebody who says, yeah, but if the global economy's heading for a bit of a pause based on the outrageous growth of the last couple of years, then where's the argument for copper? Because it's all driven economically.
That's why it's not 100% guaranteed.
That's it.
Nothing's perfect.
So how would you hedge that bet?
Well, you know, look, copper's not really done anything until recently. You know, it's sort of been, how would I hedge it? Keep a lot of cash.
All right.
You know, so we're buying into you know, we're saying that the world's becoming more electric.
True that.
And you need copper. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
And as long as the price stays where it is, the deposits that are there that are big enough and profit are what's the word that make sense. They're economic. So we wait it out. That's you know, you have to wait it out. You can't go sailing without a wind.
Yeah. Now, switching gears here, I want to talk to another one of our corporate officers from Voxtur Analytics.
Yes.
And I'm obliged to disclose that we have exposure to an option through another company, and I have, I think, 140 some odd thousand shares of the company that I bought in a private placement. I haven't sold any, and I'm probably going to buy more. Just saying. Don't ask me why, but that's my disclosure.
Right.
So if the stock goes up, I stand benefit. Therefore, consider anything we say about Voxtur in the context of advertising. And, anyways, on that note, here's Matt Harrick, Chief Revenue Officer of Voxtur Analytics. My guest now is Matt Harrick. He's the Chief Revenue Officer of Voxtur Analytics Corp, TSX Venture listed, VXTR, and in the United States under VXTRF. Matt, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Okay, Matt. So the Chief Revenue Officer, that's quite the hot seat to be in any corporation because it implies you're in charge of making money. Tell me about the different revenue streams that are currently being sort of plugged into Voxtur with all of the acquisitions going on.
That's a great question. We have several different revenue streams, Jim. We have our group up in Canada, ILA, former ILA group, which is now our RPA tax products. They're on a SaaS-based model, which is very good for us. And most of their contracts come in for 2, 3, 4 years plus with the government or counties, municipalities. And then our groups down in the U.S., mainly our title company is transactional because it's title business, and our AMC business is also transactional for the valuations. But our ANL, which was our acquisition back in earlier in the year, is all SaaS-based and growing rapidly. We have very good reviews on that. And some of the upcoming future acquisitions we have are also SaaS-based.
Okay, so then safe to say revenue is growing quarter on quarter. Is it safe to say, I mean, we've almost seen double-digit revenue growth quarter on quarter, but we really haven't seen that in the financials because you've only started reporting the combined entities as of the last quarter. So yes, is it safe to say, and in full recognition that these are forward-looking statements, is it safe to say that double-digit quarter on quarter is a reasonable expectation to have from the company going forward for the next year?
Yes, sir. There's a couple reasons why I say that. Aside from the fact that obviously we've made some acquisitions and we have growth, we've also made some investments in people. And we've brought on some industry veterans that are very articulate in the whole mortgage life cycle that can speak to all of our products and services. And as we're bringing these folks in, their pipelines are growing. It takes a couple months for somebody to come in business development and grow a pipeline, but we've made some significant investments in people. And we're starting to see that pipeline grow massively. We're starting to see some of those deals come in, contracts getting signed. Our operations teams and development teams are very busy right now, to say the least. So that trend should continue as we continue to grow. So I don't see any reason why you wouldn't see a double-digit growth.
So this digitization of the real estate ecosystem that's happening under Voxtur's sort of leadership, is that going to create a larger total addressable market for the real estate business and all of its little sort of sub-ecosystems?
Yes, I believe so. And the digitization has been a popular word in the real estate space for a while. But it is happening. It's a real event. And we're in the forefront of it. If you look at what we're doing and the moves we've made, at some point we're going to span the whole entire life cycle of a mortgage. And anything can help reduce the cost of doing a mortgage, reduce the time frame is going to be very important, we think, in the future. So the things that we're doing and building are all going towards that, and utilizing data and other things that we're bringing in to make that a reality.
So the recurring streams of SaaS revenue, software as a service, as you combine these on a single platform, the thing that attracts me to the whole Voxtur value proposition is this idea that, well, the costs of offering all of these combined sort of processes doesn't add directly to the cost of operating the system. It's somewhat, it costs more or less the same to just bolt on all these things. So is there a reasonable expectation for the profit margins to continue to increase?
It's a very good point. Yes, as you hit a certain tier, it goes into the black a lot heavier because we've already absorbed all your hard costs. And so yes, that is our goal. Obviously, that's the projections that you hear Jim and Gary talking about when they're speaking. Hopefully by the end of the year, going to 2022, you'll see significant increases in our profit margin.
And do you see any competitors out there in your sort of universe that constitute a serious threat to your ability to grow?
There's competitors in all of our areas that we do business in. And the good news is in our industry, there's plenty of work to go around. So, we're always going to run to competition. Competition is good. but we feel like that we do things a little differently. We're very nimble. We don't try to do out of the box. We work with we consider our customers partners, and we work with them on customization and things that help their business grow, and try to build a relationship where we're helping them grow their business as well. And so we think that our model is a little different than what we see out there, and it works. And those are the kind of customers we want. And so, yeah, of course there's competition, but there is plenty of work to go around. I think that it will be fine.
The situation in the U.S. right now with the moratorium on mortgages coming to an end, is that going to cause increased sort of workflow across your platform?
Yes, sir. We have our sister company is a law firm that does a lot of default work, and so we supply them the technology they use. So there'll be some increases there. It should increase our title business, mainly on the Brightline title side, which is heavily in default. And so, yeah, we should see a very good lift there. Also in our BPO space too, for valuations, as well as ANOW.
Right. And is Voxtur going to focus just on the North American market, or will you make moves into Europe and elsewhere?
That is yet to be determined, but right now our primary focus is North America.
Sure. Okay. And what kind of volume are you expecting in terms of mortgage transactions, for example, in the upcoming year?
That's a hard one. You see many different predictions out there in the marketplace. With rates remaining low, you'll see a consistent refi volume still. You could see home equity bounce back a little bit. A lot of times if rates go up, you see some home equity. Purchase market is strong, but there's not a lot of inventory right now. And if the moratorium is lifted, that creates a default market. So there's going to be a marketplace for one of those. So there'll always be a strong market, but we just don't know what angle it's going to go at yet.
Right.
We're prepared for all of them, though.
Yeah. So then you guys have got right now appraisals and title insurance and search, and you've got the legal escrow services. And so what else is there to be added to the Voxtur ecosystem that will continue to sort of expand the offering overall?
You're going to see in the future some more data opportunities to customize some data solutions to help with monitoring of a portfolio, for example, for helping out with real estate agents in their farm packages and apps and things of that nature. And that's those are all synergistic to our current business model. So you'll see growth in those areas and just continue to enhance our current product sets.
As a investor in real estate, I look at your platform and I think, my gosh, this could be so useful for improving the performance of my real estate portfolio, just because volumetrically I can do a lot more transactions if I'm plugged into this. Do you have a client base that is significantly focused on the real estate investment market?
Yes, sir. That's we are heavily involved in going after that market. You have different kind of markets for that. You have like the fix and flip type single family rental, SFR. All those areas are expanding. We're seeing a great movement there. There's been with the reopening, I guess you could say, there's been a few conferences that have started in that world. We've had great success at those and meeting some new customers that are getting into that space, providing them data in that world and things of that nature. So yes, there's a lot of products that we're coming out with that will be very, very focused in that marketplace.
Well, that's great, Matt. I really appreciate your time today. We'll come back to you soon. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Jim. Thank you.
You bet. Bye for now. So Voxtur's obviously in a bit of a downtrend itself, having touched a high of just over $1.40 back here in February, which is where I got involved with it, and now it's sort of I think it's bottoming out here. This is actually it's looking at the month. I don't know how that happens, but let's go to the single day. What the?
Yeah.
It's because I've got the. There we go. What? 1R. What the? Where's the? What the? All right, let's go to the 1 hour range and pull it way out. Okay, so there you go. There. So it's been sliding since June. This is where the hold came off of the financing, but it's starting to peter out.
It's basing out. There's no question, and it's in my mind it bases out until it stops basing out, and no one really knows when that's going to happen. But if they're doing the right things,
yes,
that'll expedite the breakout.
Indeed.
And
Indeed. So, yeah, okay. So we have a marketing program starting with that. It's supposed to have started, but apparently they're having trouble getting the pixel organized. And that should be happening this week. So we will see some more interest in this company going forward. But so Voxtur is just one of those stories where, you know, double-digit quarter-on-quarter growth that it has been exhibiting is really going to get up ahead of steam starting in the, well, I think with the next quarter, personally. But we'll have to wait and see on that. Don't hold me to it. Remember, I'm conflicted.
He's conflicted.
I'm conflicted. Internally, externally, I'm so conflicted. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about cannabis companies, Ed? Let's take a quick look here at the cannabis sector, U.S. cannabis. We'll start with that because so there was some, you know, there's been some action on the Democratic front to introduce a long shot decriminalization bill federally for cannabis in the United States. If we look at, well, let's see. Let's take a look at Cresco Labs, trading at $13.70. So this is where that news came out, was July 30th, is that there was going to be a national. So there's been a bit of a lift in all these stocks. Here's Kronos Group. Same thing, big lift around, well, actually, that's funny. So there's the big lift from the announcement of Biden. Here's another big lift. Curaleaf. Curaleaf is the big one that I've been waiting for to really blow up. It's been up above, where it is, where was it? This is where we first picked, no, it was way back here. Anyways, we got it at $7 back in last year.
Where is most of their market? Is it in Florida?
Curaleaf? Florida, yeah.
And they run a tight ship, don't they?
Curaleaf? Well, you're thinking of Trulieve.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Trulieve, Kim Rivers' company, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Trulieve's, Trulieve dominates in Florida, I believe. Curaleaf's giving them a run for the money. Everybody wants the Florida market because it's recreational and it's medical, or at least it's getting more recreational.
Right.
But look at all these stocks. Like, remember the parent company here. So this is one that we picked way back at the top, and it has done nothing but sell off. This is Jay-Z's cannabis deal.
Wow.
Jay-Z has been...
He's no longer a billionaire. Just kidding.
Well, certainly his parent company is not making him a billionaire, but, you know, this is a company...
Tough market.
Well, and they really haven't, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but they haven't made any announcements that would make you want to buy the stock. So, you know, it's been a hell of a short. If you happen to be short.
Wow. Yeah, that's what's the top price there? Is that about $14?
Yeah, up here. Well, so it was a SPAC. Remember, it was a SPAC put together by former Tilray director.
Yeah.
Name escapes me right now, but yeah, it was a SPAC, and basically, yeah, they've just been running for the exit since then by the looks of things.
You just wonder, and again, general statement, not talking to anybody specifically, but do you think that a lot of these people that have a lot of money, they get their name involved because they want to keep the ride going, and then...
You mean like Jay-Z?
Well, Jay-Z's a big
Wouldn't
name.
he be Jay-Z here?
In Canada, yes.
In Canada.
Yes,
so in
Jay-Z.
Canada, he's Jay-Z. That doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it?
Ooh.
He might want to be JQ here, because at least that's the same both sides of the border. Or maybe he just doesn't care about the Canadian market, and that's why his share price is in the shitter. No, and all the Americans laugh. Ha, 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 who cares about the Canadian market?
Well, you know, there's a number of companies that, you know, make money in the States, unlike Canada. And,
which ones?
In the United States?
In the cannabis? Well,
like
I
that
think
company in Nevada, the one with Planet 13.
Planet 13. Let's take a look at that chart. Look at that. Now they've got...
Wow, they've really come off, eh?
Yeah.
Ever since he got nominated, like like it's almost again, you buy the rumor, sell the news.
Well, so yeah, they've touched a high of $11 back here in February 2021. So they're not doing that well relative to then, but look at this run up here.
I know, and that channel there has been broken, and it's moved over to the side. Now it does look like it's rolling over to me.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd be probably leery.
Yeah. Well, the whole cannabis space has been a disappointment. I mean,
well,
I think mostly driven by, you know, the lack of federal motion on legalization federally, a national program. There's a ton of guys in the States who will say, yeah, that doesn't matter. They're building their market. Yeah, that's true. They're building their market, but the market, the stock market doesn't care about incremental growth. So as much as they care in the shorter term about headline big news. So, you know, the moment, it strikes me that the moment everybody is waiting for in the cannabis space is the moment of federal deprohibition, because a lot of the funds can't buy cannabis stocks because it's not federally legal. There's too much risk there for them.
Sure, that makes sense.
So there's a limit to the amount of money that can flow into the entire industry as long as it remains federally legal. So it's not a theory that federal deprohibition is a critical, you know, watershed requirement for the market to reach its full potential. It's just a fact. The money can't go there until it's federally legal in a lot of, in at least the largest funds.
Sure. But you know, it also speaks to the absurd valuation when a bubble begins and money flies in indiscriminately. And, you know, after the exercise, there's very few people that have the money, and there's a lot of people that have lost, you know, it's because the valuation gets way up, then the reality sets in. It's how long does it take for the revenue stream to justify the valuation, and then you get the balancing out and say, okay, well, you can't make money, you're done. But look at that lady, she sold that Supreme. Did you see what she sold that Supreme in Canada? What was it, Supreme?
Yeah, she sold to Canopy for $360 million.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, that was her $320 million. Yeah, that was. Well, Canopy's famous for overpaying for everything.
Apparently, she's going to now be involved in another cannabis company. In Canada. So
and she's going to get all the credit for taking that value. Well, you know that valuation actually was a loss for a lot of people. Like if you were in the $1.60 round of the debenture financing back in 2019, that was you took your losses, licked your wounds, and moved on. It was not a win for a lot of investors.
No, that's just again about the valuations, you know. So,
well, what the investing public generally doesn't realize is that 90% of the equity in these companies is sold at sub 5 cents, and 10% of the equity is where all the money is raised at from retail people at $1.50. So for a guy who paid 6 cents or 5 cents a share to sell it at 7.5 cents, that's why people wonder why your $1.20 investment is not going up. Too many people paid 5 cents a share, and you've got to wait till they're gone, which if your company's still around after that, it's a miracle. But generally, the main driver of losses to retail investors in the Canadian markets is too much capital raised at too low prices, and then you've got all the insiders and promoters blowing it out till the cows come home. I would have to say that I have not been unguilty of that myself in the past, because that's just what we do here. In fact, when you go to promoter school or public company school, which is basically at the bar or strip club, they teach you that you want to pay a little bit and always be a seller. Pay as little as you can and always be a seller. Those are the two rules. That's all you need to know. If you're not on the inside of the industry, you're never going to have a seat at that table. And
the seed rounds.
Well, founders round, seed round.
RSUs.
And there's other tricks to be wary of too. Guys will show you a shell. Yeah, we're merging with the shell. It's only got 5 million shares out. Everybody wrote a check for $1 a share. Don't worry. And then they merge it with a private company that's got 500 million half-penny shares out. You didn't get that memo. Yeah, and then you're like, well, wait a sec, what happened here? They consolidate it, and suddenly you owned a percentage of the company. Now you own a few thousandths of a percent, but
you're painting
that's just the way it goes.
This area as being somewhat of a murky,
well, it's just
nefarious.
It's a Shark Tank. I look at the show Shark Tank, and I'm like, that's not a Shark Tank. You call that a Shark Tank? We'll show you a Shark Tank. You want to get in a Shark Tank, get into the junior market in Canada. That's a Shark Tank where if you can swim, that's a basic skill requirement. If you can eat, and I mean that metaphorically, that's another requirement. But you have to learn how to kill in our Shark Tank in order to survive, and that's really what it's all about. So if you're wondering why you're not making money in the retail markets in Canada, it's because you're not swimming, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right.
James, I got to be honest with you. You got to know what pool you're jumping into and what's in the pool.
What's in the pool? Who's in the pool?
If the pool's empty, you got a better chance.
Speaking of deep pools.
And then you find some other people to jump in.
Well, and that's the whole idea, is to get some people to jump into the deep end with all the sharks, and then you feed on them, and hopefully you're among the sharks.
Yeah, the sharks.
You're among the sharks.
In this case, the sharks feed the humans.
Well, the humans are the sharks.
Yeah, the humans are the sharks. That's right.
Humans are the sharks. Anyways, we have another psychedelic opportunity that we'd like to discuss with you. And if you have not been consuming a healthy helping of psychedelics at least once every weekend, then you're probably mentally ill. And not that there's anything wrong with that.
No.
However, if you would like to cure your mental illness, be it anxiety, be it trepidation about the future, be it questions like, do I really love my significant other? Does she really love me? Does he really love me? Does it really love me? Whatever your pronouns are. You need psychedelics in your life. And if you're suffering from mental illness, you should look into this. I'm not kidding. Because I was mentally ill and now I'm fine. Well, some might argue that that's just not true.
Wait a minute.
Anyways, my next guest will fill you in on that. Don't listen to me. My next guest is Payton Nyquvest. He's the CEO of Numinus Wellness Inc., trades on the TSX Venture under the symbol NUMI, and in the United States under the symbol LKYSF. Payton, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Payton, let's start with an overview. What is the business of Numinus Wellness Inc.?
Yeah, so Numinus provides proprietary therapeutic services centered around psychedelics, developed through our own laboratory and R&D process and offered through our global network of locations and digital solutions. We operate within physical locations across North America and have developed global partnerships and built supportive digital solutions around that as well.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. I've done all of those substances, and my mental health is excellent. So I can say with full authority that they absolutely work perfectly. I think everybody should be doing, well, a variety of hallucinogens every day. But so now it's really remarkable to me. You know, I grew up doing this stuff, and now here it is. Finally, we've got clinical validation of the real medical merits of this stuff. I find that fascinating because it's like, well, there's a whole sort of subsection of society who's known this all along. But so then what's driving the change in attitudes, in your opinion, that is making this more medically acceptable suddenly?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if you look at the body of research that was being done in the 60s and 70s, I mean, even MDMA as an example, MDMA was actually created as a psychotherapy tool. There was 500,000 MDMA-assisted therapy sessions done in the U.S. before it was scheduled. And unfortunately, during the war on drugs, they sort of lumped pretty much all psychedelics into category 1 and scheduled them and made them illegal. But the research at that time was extremely compelling. And I think, as you said, there's been this undercurrent of people who have known the whole time the significance of and the therapeutic benefit. And, research led by groups like MAPS and Johns Hopkins, really continued to move towards that, and then was granted approvals to start carrying out research again in the 90s. And I think coupled with, this issue we have around mental health and that all of the numbers, whether you look at addiction, depression, anxiety, suicide, these are numbers that all continue to go up. And we're now in this environment and really, unfortunately, really highlighted by COVID, that probably the largest societal issue we have right now is how we treat mental health. Yeah.
Wow. That's, it's fascinating. Now, in terms of the company itself, you guys raised a boatload of money, didn't you?
We've raised, we've now got about $63 million in the bank. So raised a significant amount of capital over the last year.
Mm-hmm. And so how does the revenue model play out for this? What's the timeline? When do you actually get to start treating people on a clinical basis?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we currently generate revenue both on the lab and on the clinic side of things. It's not as easy as just offering a psychedelic experience to someone and sending them on their way. There's a lot of support pre and aftercare support that the clinics do, and currently offering ketamine-assisted psychotherapy as well. So there is revenue being generated from the clinics currently. And then on the lab side, we do a host of analytical testing and work with a number of different companies in the space that are looking to work with these molecules, and the licensing and abilities that we have at the lab give us the opportunity to do that. And then obviously there's the big blue sky side of things as well, which, on the lab side is developing this drug that we aim to have in market, the psilocybin extraction. And then on the clinical side, we have 3 different protocols that we're running, studies that are in phase 3. We're partnered with MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, which we're currently MAPS only industry collaboration. And for anybody who doesn't know who MAPS is, they're really the reason why psychedelics are where they are today. They're taking MDMA through phase 3. And so we're sites for their work in Canada. And then we have 2 psilocybin for substance use disorder protocols that we'll be running this year as well.
That's intriguing. I've been subscribing to MAPS newsletter since they started publishing it, and absolutely at the cutting edge of this whole movement. So then tell us about the capital structure of the company from an investor perspective. Who owns it, and where did they buy it?
Yeah, so the company was founded about 3 years ago. We went public in May of last year. And in terms of the capital structure, we've done, as you mentioned, a couple of financings. The last financing was at $1.25 for $40 million. There's a significant insider shareholder position as well. We're currently at about a $200 million market cap. The company's quite liquid and trading on the TSXV. We're just in the process of working towards a main board uplisting and currently looking at US uplistings as well.
Sure. So it strikes me that the competitive landscape is getting a little bit crowded in the space, because I'm having no problem finding psychedelic companies to interview every single week. So what's the total addressable market globally for this whole business? And who are the major competitors that might be, cutting your grass, so to speak?
Sure. I think, I had someone tell me the other day that there's something like 500 public and private psychedelic companies in the space. I think, there's a lot of parallels that get drawn towards cannabis, obviously. I think the barrier to entry in this space is quite a bit higher than the cannabis space was. And while there was sort of an initial rush of interest, which always generates, if the dollars are there, people will start companies to try and gather them. I think you've probably seen a little bit of a consolidation already through the summertime in the space. And so I think the delta between I'll say the haves and the have-nots, has probably gotten drawn larger over the last little while. And there's been those that have raised significant amounts of capital, and those that have, raised a little bit, but really not enough to, if it's, for example, taking a drug through clinical trials is a $100 million process. It's expensive. And so for us, I think there's a few comparables out there. We like to believe that we're a leader in the space, especially for how long that we've been at this. The company's been founded for 3 years. Really, when we started the company, there was not a lot of really Compass Pathways was the only company that we knew of in the space, but our lab has been operating for over 10 years. The clinics that we've acquired have our location in Vancouver has been operating for about 6 years now, and our locations on the East Coast over 10 years as well. So we've got a significant amount of experience, and then partnerships with groups like as MAPS, who we just mentioned, who's been at this from the very beginning. So.
So is your plan to take the whole program global, or are you going to focus on North America?
The focus right now is on North America, but the plan has always been international as well. Our licensing at the lab, for example, is international licensing, so we can work with any group around the planet who has the licensing to be able to work with us. And the focus has always been around scalability. And you're seeing research being done in Europe, you're seeing it done in Israel, you're seeing it done in Australia. So there is a real global shift that we're seeing, and it's nice to see that the research is being replicated in all these different jurisdictions as well.
Mm-hmm. So would you say then that the landscape of regulatory sort of embrace of psychedelics is uniform across the world, or are some jurisdictions better than others at this point?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, Canada's really taken a leadership position around regulatory change. You've seen things like the Section 56 licenses for people to be able to use psilocybin for end-of-life anxiety and depression. And I think just the regulatory and drug approval process in Canada is favorable. So we've been focusing a lot in Canada just because of the regulatory environment. We recently have been working with Health Canada around changing what's called the Special Access Drug Program, which at the end of last year, Health Canada, due to a briefing note that some of our group and others put together, Health Canada has posted their intention to change the Special Access Drug Program to include MDMA and psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy, which essentially offers Canadians, unlimited amount of Canadians, access to these drugs and treatments before they finish going through the clinical trial process. So you've seen Canada really take a leadership position. And then obviously what you're seeing in the US around the decriminalization movements, I think North America and Canada in particular would probably be the favorable jurisdictions on a mass or a larger scale. There are, places like Amsterdam and stuff like that have a little bit more favorable regulations, but in terms of size, Canada and the US definitely at the forefront.
Okay, great. Payton, we're going to leave it there for now, but it's a fascinating story, and I look forward to talking to you more as the story evolves.
My doctor, who's seen 1 million patients in his 45-year career, is adamant. There's psychiatry in all of us. Like, everybody's got a degree of...
Really?
Well, think about it.
I don't feel like that.
I know, but if you say it's okay to walk down the street naked, it may be okay on a beach in Spain.
Or in Toronto.
Right, but if you do it...
got that nudie beach out in Toronto.
If you walk into a grade school naked, you're going to get some pushback.
Unless you're a grade schooler
and
yourself.
You may be this neutral. All I'm saying is, it's all relative in a way, right?
Absolutely, and it's all based on others' perception. Yeah. This is the thing. What are the chances that the truly mentally ill among us are actually the only sane motherfuckers on the planet, and it's all of us who are crazy? Because look what we're doing. The place is burning down, and we're lobbing tin cans into space with billionaires.
It's funny you say this because I've been listening to a lot of Alan Watts. Right. And this guy, I mean, if you really want to get into it and escape from your story and settle back into what we really are.
Yes.
He's making the point that I lost my train of thought.
Well, against the prohibition in being oneself is one of his main sort of premises. That's the one I most recently was reading. And it's really intriguing because there's an existential sort of component to his discourse and his argument that contradicts our internal dialogue and our internal perception. And he's basically making the point that until you can quiet that internal dialogue, which is your ego telling yourself who you are, you will never actually get to experience the fullness of what you are essentially.
But you are essentially.
And so that's why,
I remember now what I wanted to say, because he was talking about, people running to be the president of their country.
Yes.
He said, you got to be absolutely insane to want that position. It's got to be the worst thing in terms of the responsibility, in terms of your mental. And anyway, I find him, quite accurate in the way he thinks. And at least it agrees with me. I'm not saying it agrees with everybody. I just find him.
Now, he died from alcohol.
He drank a lot at the end, and so did his wife. He died at the age of 58.
So they partied together.
Well, he probably...
Is it safe to say he died of having too much of a good time?
He said, I'd rather live for 50 years and have a great time than live for 100 years as a rat on a treadmill.
Right. Huh.
And so, what? How do you measure time? How do you measure... do you feel...
What is alcohol addiction if not just another form of treadmill?
Well, it's numbing down. I'm convinced that,
Sounds like you might need some 12-step there, Edward.
Look. I think you can know a solution.
True.
But you may not be
Another beer.
You may not be able to practice it. There's a big difference between
knowing
and
acting.
That's
a good point. A lot of people know better than to have another beer, but they can't stop themselves.
Cognitive dissonance. Smoking is bad, and yet you still do it because it happens to you slowly, so you don't know it. If you took one cigarette and bang, I'll think twice.
Yeah.
Anyway,
if it was like a 6-shooter and it's like you can smoke 6 cigarettes, one of them's going to get you.
Yeah.
I'll have no cigarettes. Thanks.
You know what? Let's play a different game.
Yeah, that's right. Well, interesting. But anyways, this company's done very well, and stock's on fire. So, it's actually sold off since it went public a bit, but that's to be expected. Obviously, there's going to be buyers and sellers. It is a market. That's what makes a market, a difference of opinion.
Yeah, what ran in the last couple of weeks is CYBN. CYBN.
Oh, yeah, let's take a look at that.
CYBN peaked, I think it doubled, maybe a short-term double top at $4.
Okay, so here's intraday. How about that? It's a little down today, but in generally, the trend is up.
It got up to $4. Look where it started. That's a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
But again, in that space.
Yeah, Edward, we should answer some of our viewers' questions because they've got questions and we've got answers. Would you like to know what they are?
Let's go.
Okay. Alexander Cadis wants to know, are there any books you recommend on investing or philosophy? Well, we just talked about Alan Watts' philosophy.
Yeah. On
investing, though.
There's a book that I read years and years ago. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. And if you understand that book, you'll never have to worry about money, because it says basically that for every 10 cents you make, you have to put a penny away and never touch it from the beginning.
So basically 10% goes off the table. And
you never got that. That's over here. That's sacrosanct. That is for not to be touched. That's only to make more money when the right opportunity comes along. So you start doing that. By the way, Templeton did it when he started off, doing it with 50 cents on the dollar. First 50 cents.
So he basically saved half his money.
He saved half his money. They ate frugally until they could afford to pay what they only lived off the half, and he became a billionaire. But if you read that book and understand it, I think all other investing becomes a lot simpler.
See, this is an argument against becoming a billionaire, because my argument has always been spend everything in your pocket by the end of the day, because you could be dead tomorrow. So I've always lived at the top end of the food chain, or at least as much often as I could.
And there were times when maybe you got pushed down a little bit.
Oh, there were times when, because of that profligate behavior, I was busted out.
I have the same affliction.
I don't know anybody who's been rich and broke more times than me in a day.
Well, I've been broke more than you, but not as rich as you. No.
Anyways, Reggie Wallace wants to know, what would you say is the key performance indicator you do every day, weekly, monthly, or yearly that keeps you successful? Whoa, Reggie, you thought we were successful? What's the matter with these people?
Well, but then what's your measure of success? That's where you're getting into.
That's, I think, what the question is here. What's the key performance indicator?
I look at commodities all the time. I look at interest rates all the time. If something's moving, what's the relative strength? Is it breaking out of a pattern? These are all recent things that I do now because I never did them before and I wasn't making any money.
My key performance indicator is where I take a shower every morning. I was going to say something a little bit more toilety humory, but I thought, no, let's keep it clean as shower. So where am I taking a shower today?
Right.
So, I was taking a shower on an island for many years, and that was great. I felt good about that. I was taking a shower in a totally massive insect overrun little motel room in the northern jungle near Accra, Brazil. Like, we're talking, even by Brazilian standards, out in the middle of nowhere. I didn't like that. But now I'm having a shower and a steam shower every day, and it's like, life is good. That's my key performance indicator, yes.
Well,
so even if the money goes up and down in the bank account,
you're still taking that shower.
I'm still taking the shower.
It's like when you're lying in, Alan Watts said, when you're lying in bed in the morning and everything's spinning, it's because you're just lying in bed. Shut it off.
Well,
you're lying in bed.
CBD is good for that. I do. It's 50 milligrams every day of CBD, and I put my head on the pillow. It's like 3, 2, boom, gone.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrew Creighton wants to know, how long can a stock stay overvalued from hype or demand reasons over its fundamental value?
Here's the
Ed's favorite saying.
The markets can remain illogical longer than you can remain solvent. So if you are trying to top the end of the trend, that's one of the most dangerous things you do, especially if you're a gambler.
Time the end of the trend.
Timing the end of the trend. If you try to time it and the trend is your friend, if you're betting against that trend, you can get short and the markets can destroy you.
Yes.
We've seen it time and time again with valuations.
Felt it.
Yeah,
yes. If the market was a broomstick, I've had it up my ass many times. Michelle Clark wants to know, is there a chart that covers the short positions in Bitcoin or crypto? Is there a chart that covers the short positions in Bitcoin or crypto? Well, Michelle, I can answer that. I don't know. That's my answer.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yes, all right. So we're agreed on that answer.
We're agreed on that answer. I don't know.
I guess that makes us
I think that's a
completely
very
useless.
because of the lack of regulation. I don't think.
Well, a chart of the short positions, like the short positions are changing moment by moment as much as the long
and
positions.
you know, if it's a future, there's a short for every long.
Can you?
Like
you can't borrow Bitcoin and go short, can you?
Yeah,
I don't. You can actually.
You can, but
don't. But Michelle, I'll bet you dollars to donuts that there is not a chart because I can't imagine who would possibly maintain that data or provide that data. Final question from our audience. Mitchell Stokes wants to know: can you discuss debt ceilings in the U.S.? That's no problem, Mitchell. There are none. Exactly.
You took the words out of it.
Well, again, we're aligned in our answer.
No,
debt ceiling.
Debt ceiling.
Yeah. Jeff Bezos just flew to the upper reach of the next debt ceiling, which is the edge of space, although some argue that he's not actually in space. And same with Richard Branson.
Branson, I don't think got as high as Bezos. I think the guy that's going to go up there is Musk.
Well, Musk, interesting. Musk sends ships, but he hasn't actually done it himself.
I think he's planning it. He's living next to the blast-off area in a $50,000 relative to all his other mansions. I give him credit, though. He doesn't care about the things.
Right.
He's into...
Oh, I bet you he does.
No, he sold all his homes.
Yep.
But when you got $100 billion, who gives a shit about a home?
Well, why would you care where you live?
You just walk into a hotel and say, give me the top floor.
You're basically living in a massive delusion everywhere you go.
I know.
What is good as a house could
But
be?
I like the guy. I think he's...
I hate the guy. I think he's a bald-faced promoter.
I don't...
Not that there's anything wrong with bald-faced promoters. Anyways, Ed, it's great to have you back.
It's good to be back. And unfortunately, there will be a time in...
Did I tell you that we're bumping the show to every day again? And we're going to do it from a greenhouse full of marijuana. That's our show for today, people. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to write us, Midas Letter, if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.